Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're coming from. We've got a few folks in the audience already. Everybody's been here before. They know what I'm going to ask here. So if you're new here, we always like to start off by seeing who is here and letting us know where you're from, because we tend to have a very global audience here at the Social Intelligence Lab, and it's just always nice to see who is here. So Taylor's here. Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday to you too. Nick's from LA. We've got Olivia from Pennsylvania, Adrian from DC. We've got Anna from Warsaw. We've got London in the house. A couple of people from London actually. We've got Denver as well. And there's a few more people typing up. More from London. Hello, all of my London friends. This is great. Nice to see you all. Thanks for coming to spend some time with us today, as we're going to start talking about generative AI in social listening. Now, this session is quite a special session because it has been part of our State of Social Listening work that we do each year. This year, the focus of the report was very much on how we're using GenAI in our work. And it turns out it's quite complicated, and also depends on if you're sitting agency side or if you're sitting brand side, because there's a slight difference between everything. So let's see here. We've got Jen from Social Factor here as well. Okay, perfect. Keep on chatting. Keep on letting me know who you are and where you're from. It's always good to see some faces and know we're not here alone. As I mentioned, we're here to talk about GenAI and social listening. So let me just get all of the kind of, the general housekeeping stuff that we need to do, because everybody always asks about it if we don't. Okay, so this session, why GenAI makes human analysis more important, not less. We've got Martin, we've got Brazil in the house as well. Hello. So my question to everybody, as you're starting to get settled in everything. Oh, here, George. As you're getting settled, is, are you using GenAI in your work? If you can just let me yes or no, and how, and maybe kind of a quick line about how you're trying to integrate it right now, would be absolutely amazing and help us tee up this session very nicely. So for those of you who don't know, I am Dr. Gillian Nate, and I am the founder of the Social Intelligence Lab. And this is one of the many types of webinars and virtual sessions that we do. So the housekeeping, the very important stuff. The session is being recorded. It is recorded and will be sent out to you in about 40 minutes of the session from the session ending. We will always say, go back and watch it again, because there's always something that you missed out on the first time. When we go to do notes and videos and things like that, there's always something that's happened that I just didn't quite catch on the first time around. So it's quite good to do that. And we always do ask as well, if you think that there's somebody else in your network that would benefit from viewing the video, please do send it on to them. It will be made publicly available on our website right now. So you have found we've got more people coming in. Brian's here. Hi, Brian. It's nice to see you again. And Joe as well. Hi, Joe. So we've got some of our good regulars here and some new people as well, it looks like. So hello, everybody. Welcome. Though you've already found the chat, please keep on chatting in there. Please get your questions for our panelists in there. The chat can pop off, and we do have a few of our regulars here. So I'm imagining that the chat is going to get quite busy today. So if it's getting very busy and you've asked a question and I've not seen it, or I've not got around to it yet, there is also a Q&A functionality there. That Q&A functionality comes direct to me and means I'm not going to miss it, because it's going to be less chatty than what the chat is. God, that's a terrible sentence, Gillian, but never mind. We move on. In case of any technical issues, please stay on the line. Each of our speakers already has had several technical issues as we were getting set up in the background. So today might be fun. So please do be patient with us. We do have a process for getting things back up and running. But again, for those of you who don't know, we are the Social Intelligence Lab, and we're a professional membership community for people who analyze social and internet data. And if you're here, I'm kind of guessing that is you. So we're working towards building a proper discipline for social intelligence, one that stands up for being credible and rigorous. And these sessions are part of that work it is that we do. So I'm not going to labor the point. But just to let you know, today's session, it was part of our State of Social Listening study, and this one is being brought to you by our partners on that study, YouScan. So if you've not heard about them before, I think you might have, because they keep on slowly building up in terms of how many people are using the technology, and certainly that's been picked up in the State of Social Listening. They are an easy-to-use social media listening platform, and they're trusted by over 400 major brands and agencies worldwide. And now they do have AI to help social intelligence experts as well, which is one of the reasons why they wanted to do this particular session with us. So without further ado, that was a lot to get through this afternoon. This morning, I wish it was this morning. Leo, are you there? Can we bring you back into the audience, to the studio? Let's see here. Here you are. Hello. Do you want to give a quick introduction to yourself as I bring everybody else in? Oh, we can't hear you. You're on mute.
Okay. Hello, everyone. So I'm Leo Litvinenko, CEO and co-founder of YouScan. I'm really happy to be here. And it just so happens that I have a PhD in computer linguistics. So this is like special field for me as well. It's completely different today, but still I have a lot of passion into what we do, and super happy to discuss with other people the topic of today's webinar.
Amazing, thank you. We've got so Rotam, you were first in there. Are you there? I don't have video for you. There we go. Hello.
Hello. Yes, sorry, I didn't want to distract from Leo's introduction. So I'm Rotam, and I'm a business intelligence lead for Europe at AppCore Worldwide. So that's an advisory and communications agency. I have more than 10 years of experience in the field, and I focus particularly on digital insights for B2B companies and looking at things like reputation and share of voice over time.
Awesome. Thank you. Rob, you're up next.
Hey, everyone. I'm Rob Hansen. I'm the senior manager of our social listening and operations program here at Keurig Dr. Pepper. I've been in my role for a little over 5.5 years, and my day-to-day is all things social listening. So excited for this chat.
And last but not least, Paige.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me today. I'm Paige Walker. I'm an associate manager of consumer insights at the Hershey Company. I lead our social listening and intelligence practice, so I'm excited to be here today.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Okay, so things have already started to happen in the chat, but let's just kind of go over what our goal is today. So it's to discuss what's been happening in the state of social listening and to try and move beyond the hype to really explore how GenAI is reshaping social intelligence workflows and what it can and can't replace. So we're going to have some practical applications, some critical thinking, and also discuss the rising importance of being able to interpret the data as well. So to kickstart things off, and I don't know if many people have seen this online or not. So the key stats, I'm sorry, I'm just pulling up my document here. The key stats from the state of social listening is that 94% of us are using GenAI in some shape or form, but only 3% of us are fully trusting the outputs that it creates. So that's a bit of a paradox, really. So why is this happening, and kind of what does it tell us about where the industry is really standing? Paige, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess that stat doesn't surprise me at all, because I kind of fit in that stat for sure. I'm pretty sure that's one of the survey questions I voted on and whenever I took the study. We have started to use GenAI here in our work for just all over Hershey, of course, but in social listening and social intelligence specifically, we've kind of gotten into it to kind of help us summarize those really big topics. And it's been very useful, but it's hard to fully trust it, and you kind of have to work back and forth with it to kind of get the answers you're looking for. So I can let somebody else speak before I kind of go off on a tangent.
I mean, I'll chime in. I think from my perspective, you kind of would feel left out if you're not using it and sort of behind the times. So I think that's where sort of the polarizing difference between the statistics lie, is that, you know, you're ultimately probably doing yourself a disservice by not trying to leverage GenAI in the day-to-day work from a social listening perspective. But certainly because it's still new, because there's still a lot of unknowns, you know, the trust level is going to be minimal.
Mm-hmm. Anybody got anything else to add?
Yeah, I think I can add a few things here. So, like, first thought is that what is a good AI? Like, I want to ask this question, right? And for me, it would be something that covers like your job end to end, right? So if you can get the result and you can trust into it, that's very cool. And how we are using AI often is like we are overexcited and we try to do much more than it's reasonable to expect to be perfect, right? And I guess and again I'm relating not only to what we do as a platform, because we are trying to build a platform where you can get good end-to-end results, but I'm also trying to relate to our own experience where we like sometimes get overexcited, and it takes time before you can fully trust end-to-end. So that's one thought that I wanted to share. The second thought is again kind of somewhere similar. So like how much feedback do you give to a 10 lines of text? So sometimes when I read an email or when I receive like very short piece of information, we can really give a lot of feedback. Like we can see a lot of problems, we can see a lot of improvements and suggestions and so on. When we have like 10 pages of the information, we would usually say, okay, this looks good, or not so. We have to change something. But it's really hard for humans to do a lot of input into like 10 pages of text. And sometimes what AI does, so like it kind of, from one point of view, it helps you to solve this problem. So it allows you to look into the smaller pieces. But from the other side, like there was still like 10 pages of information there. And like if you haven't really dived into it, it's really hard to like for you to like feel confident into the results of analysis of that information and so on. So that's my second thought. And third thought that I think, again, we can like share it at any point of our discussion, but I think it's gonna be relevant. So I know that Google, they claim that they use that they like 30% of their code is written by AI, and it's like huge adoption. That's very cool, super cool. But then it's just like in recent days, new research comes, and they're gaining only 10% productivity increase. And like the problem with this is that, okay, yeah, they indeed did write 30% of code, but then that means that they didn't really trust it into those lines of code to go directly to production, and they had to review it, and for that they had to spend time, and they lost a lot of productivity on this. So those are a few thoughts that I wanted to share here. Yeah, let's continue.
Yeah, I just wanted to build on that because I completely agree in this idea of we're all using AI. Why do we trust it so little, right? So if you have a task and you know that AI is, let's say, 70% correct between 70 to 80%, but you don't know what is the 20 to 30% that's wrong. So it's a bit of a Pandora's box. So you're getting something, right? You're getting a nice, like, let's say you're getting a meal and 20% of it is poison. Are you going to eat the whole meal? Probably not, right? You're going to spend some time investigating, well, which part is the poison? Now, that's maybe like drawing it to a bit of an extreme conclusion, but when we know that there's a certain amount that's incorrect and we have to find that amount, that can be a bit time consuming, and it's, an area of concern. So I think it's right that you don't trust it wholesale. It is good at certain tasks, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But the idea is ultimately, we know some of it is not correct. So how are we testing that, and how time consuming is that as a mechanism of understanding what's working and what isn't?
I mean, yeah, it can take. It's like, where do you start with that? Because there's quite a lot of it, particularly when it's analyzing data. And then there's a whole raft of, I've been following many different conversations online, and it's like, you can't get back, because it then brings in general assumptions that it's already made from other data that it's analyzing, things that it's done. So you can't actually a lot of the time pinpoint where the like, to put you to your point, Rotem, the poison, where like kind of where is it starting to go wrong? So it can't, like, is it, I don't know, well, it's going to be worth it in the long run, but is it like, it's this kind of balancing out kind of where is right and where is wrong to use it just now, I guess. And to that point, everybody has been typing in where they're starting to use it. So we've got Taylor's talking about to interrogate subtle semantic differences between expressed ideas. Okay, like the difference between leisure and entertainment. Let's go into your point, Leo, about the language side of large language models. Martin's got quick GenAI for quick regular reports, probing data sets for summaries of general findings and quick searches. Joe's doing the same. Anything that we need to have something quick. So we're talking about this speeding up our process, but actually it's maybe not speeding it up as much as what we think it is, just because of what we've discussed before, which is quite interesting. Adrian is saying, great at generating keyword for queries. Yep. And then explore and figure out nuances in perception using human analysis. Break the iceberg. Cool. Sarah is saying the dirty.
Gillian, sorry. If I may, I want to build on the idea from Sarah, like that it's very important to have accountability somewhere, and I think it's also a very powerful thought. So, like, why humans are super important, because humans they also have responsibility into their actions, right? And that's a super powerful concept, and I think it's something that is. At least for now, I don't know how to scale it to AI age. So like, you can use AI to help you, but you cannot outsource accountability. Maybe to some extent, maybe to some simpler use cases, and you just can accept the risks. But in general, I think it's a very powerful concept that human brings responsibility. Is even sometimes liability, right? So like for some things we need liability. We need to be liable for our actions.
It's a scary word. It's a scary word.
Yeah, I mean, humans they can make the choice, right? Like they're not as AI is not a decision-making engine. It's a pattern recognition machine. So it can help you find certain patterns. It can help you surface, okay, this insight might be relevant, or this thing might be relevant. I know, Paige, you mentioned using tools like Quid, which I know are really heavily based around large language models. But they don't make decisions, and they can't, decide, okay, well, here's the meaning behind this, right? So the AI gives us a really good understanding of what might be happening, but people need to give us an understanding of why and what do we do about it.
So how are you all managing that in your own work? And like, I guess this concept of liability, like kind of making sure that things are right, and kind of checking it back, that feels like quite a big job.
I can jump in here if you guys want, kind of how we've been managing it. So yes, we do use Quids. I forget, it's called Ask Quid, their AI tool. And within the platform, we have AI summaries, which has been great. So one way we've really been using the Ask Quid function is, similar to ChatGPT, you can go in but you tell it like social listening things like, can you tell me the conversation about this over the past 30 days? What's the sentiment? Have there been any spikes? Like it can just do very quick summaries for you and give you example verbatims and like, oh, it's gotten 10,000 mentions and the sentiment is -5. It's really bad, whatever. So whenever I get these big questions from our stakeholders about like current events or like something happening in the news or like a trend online, something that I don't have a social topic built out for already, it has been really great to go into that tool and say, can you tell me more about X, Y, and Z, and what's the sentiment and how many mentions has it had in the last 30 days? Pops me a quick answer. I can tell it to make me charts, which then I can copy and paste to my stakeholders. And then what we've been doing is just saying like, well, just so we're clear, this is a quick AI generated summary that we got from our social listening tool. We have not dug into this deeply, like we certainly can in the future with more time, but just so you're aware, this is a quick AI generated summary of what's going on. Take it with a grain of salt. And pretty much like that's been good so far. And then, sometimes when we dive into things a little deeper and we discover like, maybe it kind of over exaggerated this, or, oh, it took this verbatim from like a source that I wouldn't normally reference. But that's kind of, we've just been like putting that call out. Like we haven't done a ton of work here, but if you need a quick answer, here's a quick answer for now.
I think it's so important to recognize that like generative AI, while it looks like it's thinking, right? We have all these reasoning models. They are not thinking, right? We saw, I don't know if some of you have seen the recent Apple paper that highlighted this kind of logical Tower of Hanoi problem where they ran an AI through some tests on critical thinking, and that critical thinking is not occurring, right? So I feel like a really important skill set when we're using these tools is to actually understand how do large language models work and make sure that we're not kind of coming under this illusion of this idea that they might be thinking. If we understand deeply that they're working as a kind of predictive pattern matching, then we can use them for that method, right? You can use it to solve, a white page problem where you need to understand where to start or how to write a Boolean or how to identify some topics, but you can't depend on it to be thinking because it's not doing that. Only we as people can be critically thinking about what do these patterns mean? What's the result? Where is it coming from? So as much as, generative AI is fantastic and it's really producing a lot of good content. It sounds like Paige, you're using it every day. I know I'm using it really often as well. The moment we confuse it with like critical thought, I think we've made an error. And, it's not going to give us what we're looking for.
Yeah, just to kind of add up to that too, I think having sort of a threshold for yourself and what you're willing to leverage AI for versus what you're not, and being very clear with the audience as well. Paige's point about sort of providing sort of that nuance or caveat of like, hey, this is where it's sourced from and this is what we're using it for. I think there are certainly very clear opportunities for where it makes a lot of sense to use. Rotem just referenced kind of building Boolean. I think inspiration, ideation, and sort of formulating some of these kind of broader thoughts is certainly, I think, one of the most important capabilities today. I for one am sort of start using it as a starting point to build a Boolean query from a broader topic lens, because I might not be able to think about all the different flavor variations for some type of category that I'm looking into, but it's a great way to kind of inspire and sort of start and surface those ideas. But for some of the more critical information that I might be passing to leadership around a specific brand crisis or something like that, I'm going to not rely on that information as directly, just because of the issues from an accuracy perspective.
Okay.
But I want to try like this different part and just to say so that for AI, not every so like in terms of value, what we get from AI is not necessarily correlating with the difficulty. So sometimes we can get valuable, like very valuable for our business or our task very valuable insights, let's call them insights, and they're gonna be correct. And some other insights which seem to be like super easy for us to do are super complex for AI to do. So I mean, there are two different notions. Like in terms of value, what we get not necessarily correlates in terms of difficulty, like what models can do. So sometimes, and that's an important thing to think about, because sometimes we would not use AI in cases where we just think, okay, it's too valuable, it's too important. And I mean, I catch myself on doing this, like in not using AI where I think I should be doing it more often, because it just, I'm kind of mixing this notion of value and difficulty, and sometimes very valuable things, they're not actually super difficult for AI to have a good suggestion. So that's one thought to have in mind.
Mm-hmm. It's an interesting thought, actually, because like I'm thinking about how we use it here. I have tried to analyze data with it and given up because it just doesn't do what I need it to do, because it surfaces the probable parts of it, and I'm not looking for the probable. I'm looking for something that's quite specific and small. So it's no use for me. And we even tried to analyze the state of social listening study on it. But we had done it all by hand, and we kind of knew where we wanted to go with it. And there was some overlap, and it did make a couple of good suggestions. But I don't think I would have trusted the full thing. And I think a lot of what we're just talking about here is the level of trust. And just to kind of pull up Phil's question, he's asking, does the level of trust depend on the task? And do we trust AI to deliver broad, ready, empirical outcomes? He's saying probably not. I would agree there. But for rinsing large data sets to identify trends or patterns or further investigation, then I think, yes, we do need to at least think. And it seems to be that's where everybody's headed with this right now. Is that correct?
Can I bring in another metaphor?
Yeah, of course. Well, so keep them coming.
It's my favorite thing. I did study English literature, so it's a compulsion. But I think when I think about LLMs, right, we've been using them as social media experts and as social listening experts for years, way before ChatGPT, way before generative AI. None of this is really new. And the reason it's not new is because large language models are really great at, again, that idea of pattern recognition. So if you have a huge amount of data, using an LLM is an excellent tool. You should be using an LLM, and I'm going to say LLM and not generative AI because I think those two things might show up a little differently, but that is what we should be using. And the way I think about it is an LLM takes all that data and it creates for us this kind of magic eye picture. So these magic eye pictures, everybody's seen them online, right? They look like a lot of visual noise. They look really weird. It's just a lot of like strange colors and a little bit of digitization. But when you look at it from a particular angle, as a human, you can see, okay, what is the pattern? What is the picture that's being presented within this magic eye image? Now, the magic eye image, right, that AI produces for us is still full of noise. There's a lot of like misfiring and a lot of incorrect patterns, a lot of things of, okay, you should look at this, but actually that's not important. But we as people, we know how to recognize, okay, we need to validate what's the pattern and understand what's the shape of it. So I totally agree that there are moments where you absolutely should be using a large language model. You can't be going through, 500,000 tweets manually. That's just not reasonable. But if you're using it for that's where you're getting the value. If you're using it for something else, which is, okay, tell me why I've gotten those 5,000 tweets, 500,000 tweets, that's not going to work out for you nicely. It's more of, okay, tell me what are the patterns that I'm seeing. And then I, as a human, can look at them and decide, okay, what is it? What do I do with it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, perfect. Sorry, I have been reading as well in the comments in the chat because it's gone a little bit out of control. So let's pick up on some of this. Like a little bit on the point of repeatability. Has anybody tried this to see if you can get to the same answer? So by repeating the the same prompts to see if two people are getting to the same answer or not. I think a couple of people in the chat have been. That's what. Sorry, I've been working from the bottom up for some bizarre reason.
I think it depends on what you're doing. I've definitely seen some repeatability, but like it's usually if I'm querying, maybe I'm asking a generative AI model about, tell me something about this industry. What are some major trends in this industry? Or, give me some information about a particular brand. Often we'll see something repeat because of the data that it's trained on. It is quite similar. I don't know about you, Rob, if you've seen this or if you have any experience on like when you've used AI and it's repeated itself.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen instances where you will, in some of the tools that I've used, like hit the summarize button and the answer can be conflicting or totally different than where you had summarized it, just a few minutes prior to that or the day before that. So I think that's where some of the concern comes in, is that the inconsistency, especially when you're summarizing large quantities of data. And again, like you said, Ronan, they're like looking directionally at patterns, and so that's where it's like, we'll select this pattern to then provide the analysis around today versus what we sent or a similar analysis around in the prior time that you pulled that same summary. So yeah, I think that's some of the concern, is the inconsistency there.
Okay.
I can say here as a vendor, like doing some stuff there, right? So like you would usually, as a vendor, you would usually try to have your own like validation data sets, and part of it, how it works, you would usually like try to see if you can really reproduce the results. So like not necessarily the exact reproducibility, but I would say that usually you have to have that as a part of your like development process. But yeah, of course, like there are tons of cases where it's not necessarily always consistent. And there's one more thing that you can actually do, is to try. So like we are trying to touch here a little bit like implementation details, and I think there are a lot of things that can be done, and we actually have a lot of plans on our own what to do, and I think it's gonna improve. So like my take, the tech is gonna improve definitely, and there are a lot of like comments here in chat. I see also like from Martin that okay, there are some other parts of information that platforms are not touching. That's gonna happen. So there is no reason not to expect it to be there at some point. So I can say here that as a vendor, you have to think about the reproducibility. You have to think about providing the references to your thoughts. You have to think about like what we do, for example. So we would, when we try to summarize the data, we would try to also try to understand from the question people are asking, try to understand how we can precisely filter the data. So we try to extract parts that are not having like double reading, and we would do like precise things, and then we would try to apply generative AI on top. And I think like more and more vendors would do similar stuff, because that just makes sense. So if you can extract precise things, you would use them, and then you would like work with the less precise things on the rest of the data. But my general point here is the tech gonna improve. So I see a lot of opportunities for improvement there. Like it's possible to cross-check your insights also as well. So like you don't have to be limited to one answer. You can do a lot of different answers and then cross-check them. It's gonna cost. It's difficult to build and so on, but that's possible. And I think there is no reason not to expect for tech to be better like next year and the year after and so on.
I do want to, can I ask a kind of spicy question? I know I'm a panelist, but this assertion that the tech is going to get better. I understand that on like a back end sense of, okay, we want to tweak, where is the data coming from, or what are we looking at when someone asks this question? But I'm also really curious about the effect of generative AI on our media landscape. So if we're starting to pull in huge amounts of bad data, right? So like,
that's a very good question.
like tweets that are generated by AI, articles that are nonsense. Like, how then do we ensure that actually the accuracy goes up? Because my concern sometimes as a user of some of these tools is that it's not just about the AI tool itself, right? It's also about the data that's going into the tool. And if AI is increasingly influencing that data for the worse, then how can we, really say with confidence that we think these things will get better? I feel like they're going to stay largely the same, and we as users will understand better how to use them and when to use them and what not to do, how to validate. But I'm not really convinced that it's going to radically improve, just because we're going to see some other problems start to pop up, I think, later.
Yeah, I agree. Those problems are getting more and more relevant for today. But then again, like that's problem of the customers who work with platforms is also a problem of the vendors, right? So there's gonna be like some improvement there as well. For example, what we did, we built this like GenAI detector just as a public product for people to try to see if they can like distinguish automatically the text that are being generated versus the text written by people. It's a difficult task, and it's definitely, I wouldn't claim that we totally solved it, but yeah, I mean, we would still think about this, and this problem that we have a lot of content, AI generated content, we would even call it AI pollution and so on. That's a very relevant problem for us to also focus and to try to solve it. And I'm still more optimistic than you, Rotem, frankly, because I think we're gonna solve that as well, to some extent, of course.
Yeah, no, brilliant. No, thank you very much for that. Sorry, I have lost control of the chat. You're it's great. You're chatting a lot, but I had a question that I wanted to circle back on, because Adrian was asking, and I think that Rob, pages might be a little bit more for you, is for those with very robust social listening projects built out on their tools, has anyone had success using AI tool to parse through the data you may already have? I.e., do you already have a tag that talks about dining, or do you have a dashboard that includes my queries for brands A, B, and C?
I mean, I've certainly used out of the box. Sorry, Paige. Like out of the box, what's available to us, and some of all of that is AI created, generated at some level. And then I'd alluded to kind of ideation around Boolean queries, but I also, when it comes to like thematics and how I'm layering on thematics into the data sets that I'm looking at. So if we take, one of the brands that I will look at on a consistent basis, Dr. Pepper, trying to pull apart and kind of dissect that from a thematics perspective, sort of the out of the box offering is just okay directionally, but it's maybe not kind of painting the complete picture, or at least dissecting it the way that ultimately I would want it, or what the project requires it to look like. And so yeah, I mean, it exists today for me, and I'm starting to use GenAI more often to help identify some of those signals to then kind of break down that information at scale. Especially, the kind of broader the ask, the more reliant I become on that. But we still sort of kind of blend the HI and AI components in those projects, just to ensure we're positioning that information as directionally the most accurate as possible.
Yep. Yeah. Paige, I see you nodding your head there as well.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with everything Rob was saying. And yeah, the way that I've been using it with some of my larger projects, like just the other day, I was exploring a topic for a new food category we're potentially going to enter into. And, it's 600,000 some mentions. Like, it's crazy. I could never read through that with my own human eye. So I'm going through, and Quid has the AI summary, and I can go into the different widgets and tell it, hey, generate an AI summary for the positive sentiment, the negative sentiment, for the hashtags, for this. And like Rob said, it's just kind of okay. Like, it exists, it's okay, and it can give me some direction for where to look, or like certain keywords, like, oh, I didn't consider that tiny little thing, or oh, that's interesting, maybe I should dig into that a little more, like layer that on as a theme. But it'll kind of, I like to say sometimes it says a lot of nothing. and like it'll just like say really fancy words, and I'm like, this doesn't really mean anything. It was talking about like this specific food I'm looking into. It's like, oh, the cultural significance of this is very important. I'm like, well, what is the cultural significance? Tell me. Like, so, and then like it'll give me like, oh, look at example verbatims. And I'm like, great, yes, let's look at some examples. And it'll be like one blog post from some random blog that's like some guy made in his basement, and like it's the only verbatim available for this specific insight. And I'm like, well, how did you take this one little thing from this one person on this one source that I would really never use in a report to then generate this large insight? So like that's kind of where I have a problem with it, is it'll create, I don't want to say it'll create patterns where patterns doesn't exist, but like it will over exaggerate kind of like the insight it's giving me. Like, oh, here's this one guy said this, so this is a big direction. And I'm like, no. I need multiple people from multiple sources saying the same thing before I can then, give this to an R&D innovation team, So it, to use Rob's words, it's okay. And it can provide a starting point, but it's just definitely not like where you would hope it would be at this point.
Yeah, I think that's a really that's a really important topic, because its purpose is to find a pattern. It's going to find a pattern in something because that's what it's there to do. It's not always necessarily the right pattern that it's finding, or the most credible one is what you're finding out. But have we got any kind of, is there any way of being able to spot those false positives and then go back and like kind of try and amend and work back from them so it removes them almost? Do you have any advice for that?
I mean, I guess just like human insight is the advice. Like, you are the expert, and then if you're seeing something that's not true, you could go ahead and exclude that topic or that author, or go fix the sentiment, or manually kind of investigate and see if you can actually pick up more verbatims of whatever insight it generated. At least that's what I do.
Mm-hmm. Anybody doing anything else? Like how do you know to spot it? Like how, because there's been a lot of chat in the comments about the different, like the quick and dirty, I think was the term that was used. So are we going into everything with the quick and dirty, or is this for the deeper insights where it needs a bit more depth? Like, how are we balancing that out?
I mean, I think it has to do with the training data, right? And I see like the conversation in the chat, which feels like it looks not relevant, but I think it's actually quite relevant, which is about influencing, right? So how are some of these chatbots influenced? Mm-hmm. And I think it's because, right, as you mentioned, Paige and Jillian, sometimes the AI creates these patterns that don't exist, right? Because what's happening is there's an informational vacuum. It's identified one signal, and it's decided that that is enough. So like I see this often with, when I'm looking at a Google AI overview or other uses of generative AI, if I'm asking a question and the answer doesn't exist, right? Like, there was that instance a while ago where people would put in some random phrases and then put meaning behind it. And then the Google AI overview would just generate some sort of strange answer aligned with whatever it thought the meaning of the phrase was. So if that training data doesn't exist, it is going to create these kind of confabulations, these hallucinations. So when we're looking at our own data, it might be an understanding of, okay, do I need to provide more training data or more data on this issue because it can't generate some sort of pattern that I can trust? And when it's looking at, generative AI in the wild, so thinking about, because I'm thinking a lot about the reputation of companies and how they're showing up online and what does it mean and how is AI influencing that reputation? It's trying to understand, well, where has that come from? So if AI has decided that it's come to some sort of conclusion, what is it based on? And if it's missing information, can I provide that information? So can I tell a client, well, actually, you need to be talking more about X, Y, and Z, or you need to be doing it in a way that's crawlable by AI because AI can't access that. And so it's just making stuff up. what can we do that can shift some of that data? Because it really has to do with what it's trained on. I don't think it has to do with a lot else apart from like specific tools where you're building the tool to do a specific type of work, and then you can lay over some sort of algorithms.
Great, thank you for that. There's a bit more depth there. Does anybody else have anything to add on to there? No, I've come across a question. I mean, I can't keep up with the chat. I'm sorry. I've just kind of abandoned it and just flicking through every now and again to see what catches my eye, because everybody's talking here and talking in the chat. But Maria, I don't know if we can answer this question, Maria, because I don't know if we have the knowledge here yet. But she has two questions. Can you tell me a bit more about data poisoning that can be done by some governments for propaganda purposes, for example? Is it a real thing and does it work? Does anybody have any experience of this that we can talk about this before we go on? No.
I mean,
Okay.
Leo, you shared an article in the chat.
Yeah, we
relevant. So
yeah. I mean, there's actually a discussion there already in the chat. So
all right, okay, we can go. I've not got that far down yet, Leo. Like it's
yeah, but yeah, it's a very real. I think it's a very real case, especially when there is a vacuum of some information, and I mean, it's not like a topic that has been for a long time, and there's definitely a possibility to influence. And then, like every major vendor might have their own problems and like their own potential for injections, depending on how they work, like how they index public data, what they prioritize, and so on. Because it's not necessarily like the model is poisoned. It could be like what the model decides to show as the relevant answers. That could be a problem, and that's different for different platforms. So yeah, I think it's very real. And then there's more in chat actually from people saying that there were conferences about this as well. And there are a lot of organizations thinking about this. So for example, we spoke and worked with NATO Strategic Center of Excellence, and they pay a lot of attention to this topic, and they are really like, I mean, they have a center working with the social data and like trying to understand what's going on, what narratives are being pushed, and so on. So it's very real, and yeah, and people trying to push things, they gonna be innovating as well, and that's a problem. So it's gonna be a constant challenge for everyone, I guess. That's my thought on this. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. I have been just now looking at all the chat. Like it was covered. I just didn't go far enough because I'm like, I keep something in there because I don't want to forget it, because the chat's very chatty, which I love. Can we shift gears a little bit though? There was something that we discussed in our pre-panel call, and this was about being able to, like, people finding out about your brand or your product or your service or whatever using GenAI to figure it out. And just like the risks of it picking up the wrong thing because maybe there's been some disgruntled customer that's shared a few TikTok posts and they've kind of exploded. How are we checking? Like, this is very real. How are we checking for this, and how are we trying to manage that? Rob, do you want to?
I think it's a huge issue, and I think there's a lot of work to be done to understand exactly, how those answers come to fruition and what brands can do to sort of combat some of the false narratives that are a part of that. It's certainly kind of one of those still unknowns to kind of really understand and figure out from an approach perspective, especially speaking on behalf of like a brand. Because yeah, if it's only pulling information from a handful of reviews on a certain website, or if it's taking into account legacy data that's not necessarily accurate, or misleading news coverage, and sort of conflicting messaging, you're kind of being set up for failure without really any control. And that is sort of the new way that consumers are getting their information and knowledge. The first thing they'll see pop up when they Google is that's the AI summary, and unfortunately, a lot of people are taking that as kind of the sole source of truth.
Yeah, I have
Yeah.
to confess, I've done it myself when I've looked up a
Oh yeah, me too.
I can build on that, Rob, and yeah, it's also a big problem for us here, and just stuff that I have faced, in my couple roles here at Hershey. There will be times where consumers get incorrect information about our brands via Google, maybe not via AI, but if you think about it, the AI is taking it from Google and from all these other sources. So if there's incorrect information, specifically this has happened with our ingredients, people are like, oh, this certain ingredient is in here. I saw this article and it said this, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, this ingredient's not it's in here. You can look at our label and see that it's clearly not. But because Google and maybe Reddit has decided that we're using a certain allergen or something, that's the truth. And that's obviously not true in certain cases. So it's kind of created some problems for us where, at times you got to get CorpCom involved, and then they, can release a statement if necessary about certain things. And we can kind of decide when it's necessary to take action. But honestly, like, one of my fears with AI is just with misinformation and disinformation, and that it's going to be very hard in the future to tell what's real and what's not, and what's true and what's not. So I'm kind of interested to see where that goes, interested to see the different ways we're going to come up with to combat mis and disinformation, because it's already a problem now in 2025. So as we're, moving on, I fear it's going to become worse. So I'm looking forward to see what innovation can be solved around it.
Yeah, it's like the dead internet theory, right? Which is like this theory that eventually everybody will just be a bot online, and all the bots will be talking to each other rather than real humans, and we won't even be able to tell the difference. And I think, I wouldn't say we've gone that far, but it's definitely when people are going to AI for answers, it's absolutely a risk for brands today. And it can spread, misinformation. Like, AI can misconstrue something. It can take the information from something really old. We're working on this, and I'm leading an initiative in my company on how to measure this, how to understand the risk, and then how do you understand how to influence it. So if you want to change something, how do you change it? If it's incorrect, well, why is it incorrect? Is the AI system not crawling your website correctly because of how it's formatted? Or is it pulling the data from really old articles? Like, we did a search for a company, and I saw it was pulling an article from 1988, which is like wild. I think that's pre-Google, but somehow this is what was coming up as a source of information. So it's really crucial to think about, okay, well, how do we work this back? How do we know what works? And then how do we make sure that we're staying aware of these risks for us from generative AI?
Great, cool. Leo, do you have anything to add on this one?
So I know one relevant thing here. So there was an engineering site called Stack Overflow, and at some point in time, it was a very popular place where people would, like, when they were searching, they would come there. And right now, it's basically like not active anymore, because people are not coming there, because people are getting kind of this information natively via GenAI tools, and that's precisely what I'm saying. So yeah, this is basically a new channel of information for us, right? So like this summary that we get from Google, it's a different information. It's not the same as it used to be, and yeah. I'm still more optimistic, because I think if it's not gonna be top quality, it's gonna lose its usage, and I mean, it's gonna be bad for Google. So they would hopefully fix it, but I'm positive about the life in general. So that's how I perceive things.
Fingers crossed they do. Rotem, do you think that you can influence it then, when it's picking up all of these different these wrong citations, or what, like the kind of the wrong sentiment?
I mean, absolutely. I've seen people do it. I think there are limits to what you can do and how you can influence it. You saw the article about foreign influencers who are already trying to influence some of these models. Again, it depends on, just like when we're doing research, what is the data that we're using to do the analysis? If the data is bad, then the output is bad. So sometimes intentionally people are injecting bad data to get whatever output they want. and you can't really escape that. So I think, I love that LLM grooming. It does sound quite creepy.
Doesn't it?
You call it generative engine optimization, but yes. So I think you can. There are obviously limitations on how much you can influence, and a lot of this is still a black box to a certain degree. But I don't think it's impossible. And we see it every day in terms of bad data in, you get bad output from LLMs. So I don't think it's rocket science.
Okay, great. Thank you. So just a 5-minute warning to everybody. We are kind of coming towards the end. So if anybody does have any burning questions that you do want to ask the panelists, then pop them in just now. I've got one about the future of our work as social listeners. So what is the future of our work going to look like? And is there any kind of specific skills that we need to be doubling down on just now to get ready for that type of work? Paige, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I think Rotem said it. It was like the quality of the input depends on your quality of output. So I think as social intelligence practitioners, we need to learn the best ways to prompt the AI to give us the data and the information we're looking for. Because if I'm just popping in a general question with not a lot of specifics, it's probably going to give me a general answer with not a lot of specifics. So just learning the best ways to speak to it. And then, once you do have quality data available, okay, how can I work this into my workflow and broadly share this with my team? And I think I'm going to start trying to use it really to summarize these big, deep reports that I will do sometimes and help me create those recommendations for our innovation teams or our marketing teams. And I'm still working on the best ways to prompt it. We had a training today actually about AI and the ways we can work with it and use it here. So I'm excited to explore more and maybe, once I can prompt it better and maybe the answers will be a little better. So just continuing to help me answer those huge questions and then, focus more on the deep analysis work that I do need to do on my own. But if there's quick answers from stakeholders that I can provide with AI, I'm going to continue to do that.
Cool. Actually, I'll pull up a study. There was a study done in Procter & Gamble, and they used junior analysts and AI to see if they could do innovation projects, and actually they managed to do them very, very well. I'll see if you give me a couple of minutes just as we're going around the panel, and I'll pop it into the chat for everyone as well because it was quite a good read. Rob, do you anything else above kind of where Paige has landed here about what our work's going to look like?
Yeah, I think Paige hit the nail on the head in terms of how we're thinking about prompts and sort of the different use cases. And I think ultimately it's going to be sort of kind of redefining roles and skill sets as well. We've already seen the progression of we're moving from data mining and trying to understand and sort of track down data to more sort of the insight curation capacity. And I think there will be more of an emphasis on that. And I think that's what we should do as professionals in the industry is sort of position ourselves as sort of, these storytellers and really emphasize sort of that insight curation component and sort of how we can place that value on understanding narratives with a little bit more kind of weight in general. So I think there will be that kind of natural shift, and we've already kind of seen it and sort of more of this emphasis placed on the sort of the value of the insight with the layered human intelligence component.
This is, I started to call as meaning making. And we're good because it's the one thing that we can do that the machine cannot. And for us, I think it's also the delineation, because we've spoken a lot before about because everybody thinks that social listening is technology, and it's not just that. There is a professional practice and a discipline that goes in, but that goes in alongside that to allow you to get the insight out. But a lot of the time it can be overshadowed by the technology component. But I think that's about to flip actually now, and I think that we're all in quite a good position to be leading on that, really. Rotem, Leo, do you have anything else to add into that?
I agree actually, and I think again, we spoke at the very beginning about this. People are bringing context as well, and that's a very important thing, right? Mm-hmm. So people own the context. And I mean, context can be so different. So for the same data, you would want very different things depending on the context of your company. And
Yeah.
and like we even see this within companies, right? So like different people, they think about different things. They have different fears, different like focuses and so on. And I mean, we speak with people, right? And we always share like our opinion, we get another opinion in return. And that's not because like someone is right, it's because we are looking at different things. And
Yeah.
the same for companies goes. So like different context, very different context, and people bring the context. And yeah, I think that's beautiful.
Me too. Rotem, you've got the final words today.
Oh, the final word. I am hopeful. I agree with you. I think we're in a hype cycle with AI. I think it looks like a very, someone said shiny object syndrome. I totally agree. It's like the sexy new tool on the block. And my hope is that, 2 years from now, it becomes normal and that we understand more of its limitations and people recenter humans as part of, insight generation and creating those conversations, because I do think it'll get to the point where it's so ubiquitous, everybody has AI. Well, what differentiates us, right? What differentiates your company, your brand, you as a person? It's your context and your culture and what you bring to the table. So I am really hopeful that that's, where we'll see things going, and we'll use these tools because they're really great. They're really helpful. But we'll maintain a focus on, what makes people people.
Yeah. So it's a lot more soft skills development and things like that, like being able to interpret and bring into context and like understand the cultural nuances and things. So there seems to be a better, clear delineation between tooling and the human. And I hate the term human in the loop, because I think that this part of it is significantly different from where you're talking about the human in the loop in the AI. This is distinctly different work, but we're at time, and I just have to say thank you so much. This was this was amazing. This was great. I could go on for another hour, but I'm very conscious of all of your time. And Leo's on vacation and has beamed in from holiday for us. So thank you so much for sharing. And yes, we need to have more of these conversations. We will be having more, as I think that it's probably good to maybe do a quarterly check-in on GenAI, probably, just to see where we're at, because things are moving at such a rapid pace. So that is a great idea, and we will take that and run with it. Thank you so much, Marika, for that one. Love that. But thank you to everybody, and thanks to everybody for all of your comments and questions and just coming in to tune in and spend all of this time with us. From me, we are back tomorrow. Actually, we have a demo of a new technology called Dig. They are in social video. So if that is something that you're missing in your current stack, come and join us tomorrow. You'll receive a link about it in the email that comes out after this event today. So thank you so much again to everybody, and I will see some of you tomorrow as well, hopefully. Thanks to our amazing panelists too. See you. Bye-bye.
See you.